The murder of James Bulger remains one of the most shocking and heartbreaking crimes in modern history. In 1993, 2-year-old James Bulger was abducted, tortured, and killed by two 10-year-old boys, Robert Thompson and Jon Venables, in Liverpool, England. The crime shook the world not only because of its brutality, but because of the perpetrators' young ages. In this episode, we'll recount the tragic events surrounding James Bulger's murder, the investigation, the trial, and the impact this case has had on society and criminal justice. This is a story of innocence lost, of grief and outrage, and of questions that linger to this day. On the afternoon of February 12, 1993, 2-year-old James Bulger was with his mother, Denise Fergus, at the Strand shopping centre in Bootle, near Liverpool. It was an ordinary day of errands, with James holding Denise's hand as they navigated the busy mall. In the same shopping centre were two boys, Robert Thompson and Jon Venables, both 10 years old, who had skipped school that day. They were known troublemakers, often engaging in petty theft and mischief. But on this day, their actions would escalate into something unimaginable. Thompson and Venables had been wandering the mall, stealing various items, including candy and blue paint. At one point, they decided to abduct a child. Surveillance footage captured a chilling scene, the two boys coaxing James away from his mother while Denise was briefly distracted at a butcher's shop. Holding James's hand, the two boys led him out of the shopping center. This moment would become one of the most infamous images in modern criminal history, symbolizing the beginning of a horrific crime. After leaving the shopping center, Thompson and Venables began leading James Bulger on a 2.5-mile walk through the streets of Liverpool. Along the way, they passed numerous people, some of whom noticed the unusual sight of two older boys with a young, crying child. When asked, the boys gave various excuses, saying they were taking James to a police station or that he was their younger brother. Tragically, no one intervened. As they walked, Thompson and Venables began tormenting James. They kicked and hit him, leading him to cry and resist. Witnesses reported seeing James fall and hit his head, leaving a visible injury on his forehead. Despite this, the boys continued their journey, crossing busy streets and even leading James to a canal, where they momentarily dangled him over the water. Eventually, they reached a railway embankment near Walton Lane, an isolated area far from the city centre. This would become the scene of a horrific crime that would forever change the lives of everyone involved. What happened next is difficult to recount. At the railway embankment, Thompson and Venables subjected James Bulger to unimaginable violence. They threw stones and bricks at him, kicked him, and beat him with an iron bar they found nearby. They also poured the stolen blue paint into his eyes and stripped him from the waist down. The level of brutality was beyond comprehension. After the attack, the boys left James on the railway tracks, hoping that a passing train would make it look like an accident. Tragically, James died from his injuries before the train passed. The discovery of James's body 2 days later sent shockwaves through Liverpool and beyond. The public was horrified, not only by the brutality of the crime, but by the realization that two young boys were responsible. Following the discovery of James Bulger's body, police launched an intensive investigation, reviewing hours of surveillance footage from the Strand shopping centre. They soon identified the chilling image of James being led away by two young boys. The footage was released to the public, and within days, several tips led investigators to Robert Thompson and Jon Venables. When questioned, both boys initially denied their involvement, but soon confessed to the crime. The confessions were both shocking and heartbreaking. The boys described in detail how they had abducted and killed James. Despite their young ages, they displayed a disturbing awareness of their actions. though psychologists would later argue about their level of understanding. The public reaction was one of outrage and disbelief. How could children commit such a heinous act? The case raised profound questions about the nature of evil, juvenile crime, and the responsibility of society in raising its young. The trial of Robert Thompson and Jon Venables began in November 1993 at Preston Crown Court. Because of the severity of the crime, the boys were tried as adults, making them the youngest defendants in British history to be charged with murder. The courtroom was packed with reporters and members of the public, all eager to understand how two 10-year-olds could commit such a horrific crime. The boys sat in the dock, accompanied by their parents, and showed little emotion throughout the proceedings. Both boys were found guilty of the murder of James Bulger on November 24, 1993. They were sentenced to be detained at Her Majesty's pleasure, a form of indefinite detention for juveniles. The judge described the crime as both cunning and very wicked, words that echoed the public's outrage. Following the trial, the media frenzy only intensified. Thompson and Venables were portrayed as evil incarnate, and their faces were plastered across newspapers and television screens. The British public demanded justice, with some calling for harsher punishments and even the death penalty. After their conviction, Robert Thompson and Jon Venables were placed in secure juvenile facilities. Over the years, both boys received education and psychological counseling. In 2001, at the age of 18, they were released on parole and given new identities to protect them from public retribution. The decision to release the boys sparked renewed public outrage. Many believed that their crime was too heinous to be forgiven, while others argued that they had served their time and deserved a chance at rehabilitation. Jon Venables would later reoffend, being arrested multiple times for possession of child pornography. Each arrest reignited the public's anger and reopened wounds from the original crime. Robert Thompson, however, has kept a low profile and has not reoffended since his release. The murder of James Bulger also had a profound impact on the British justice system. It raised debates about the age of criminal responsibility, the treatment of juvenile offenders, and the role of media in shaping public opinion. James's parents, particularly his mother, Denise Fergus, have become advocates for victims' rights, working tirelessly to ensure that their son's memory is honored. The murder of James Bulger is a tragedy that continues to haunt the world. It is a story of unimaginable loss, of a family torn apart, and of a society grappling with the darkest aspects of human nature. James Bulger's life was cut tragically short, but his memory lives on as a reminder of the need for justice, compassion, and vigilance in protecting our children. Thank you for joining me as we explored this heartbreaking case. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more true crime stories and in-depth investigations.